So Dave just dropped his album Psychodrama March 8th. It has 11 songs and it runs for 52 minutes. The album cover, we see Dave with his head directed downward, and in place of his face is a blue flame. And I thought this was pretty interesting because if you know, when it comes to the color of a flame, the blue is the hottest point. And so to parallel that with the title, he's basically conveying that, you know, the trials and tribulations of his life are at the point of, you know, the highest of order. And the title of the album Psychodrama, means a form of therapy where a patient uses role playing and dramatic self-representation to gain insight into their lives. And so as you're listening to this project, he's basically giving you a peek inside what's going on in his mind. And I thought this was a pretty cool album cover. But anyways, moving on, singles for this album, we have track 2, Streatham, and we have track 3, Black. Standouts, we have Psycho. The song acts as a therapeutic session. The first half of the song is energetic and upbeat, and the second half is slowed down. The two can be a representation of bipolar disorder. The manic side, which is the high, you know, is energetic, and the depressed side, which is slowed down, which represents the low. He says, I was born to be wild. I don't want to be tamed. Talent's in my blood. I don't want to be vain. That line right there is a double entendre, because he's basically using vein, meaning the veins in your arm, which is the blood part. And then I don't want to be vain, meaning he doesn't want to be, you know, a show off and really in the spotlight or to brag. And then he says, my ex-girl wants to shoot a cover for Vogue, which is pretty ironic because she's top of the range. If any one of you take a shot on a track, my niggas come back and put a shot in your frame. And right here, he's speaking to an ex-girlfriend of his who, you know, wants to be on the cover of Vogue, but she's so beautiful that, you know, people should be dying to, you know, take her picture. And he says top of the range, which is also a reference to Range Rover, which is, you know, pretty much at the top of the food chain when it comes to, you know, SUVs. And then he says, if any one of you take a shot on a track, my niggas come back and put a shot in your frame. So basically he's saying that if any one of y'all diss him, he got people that can handle the situation, you know, off of wax. Then he says, 99 problems, money is not one, my currency's Kenyan. That's in it for the long run, huh? Basically, the 99 problems is a reference back to Jay-Z's song, I got 99 problems, but a girl ain't one. But he's saying he got 99 problems, but having money isn't one. And his currency's Kenyan, that's in it for the long run. That's basically referencing, you know, the Kenyan athletes dominating in terms of long distance races. He says, I used to tell my teachers that nobody gets it. I don't know Clarke, but I know that I'm a kidult. And I thought this was cool. This is a reference to actor and director Noel, who developed a series of films. One is called Adulthood, and I think there's a third one too. It's a pretty interesting series, and if you haven't seen it, you should look it up. It's pretty dope. Then he says, furthermore, I should bring that bitch down to Streatham and then make her spend a day in the Vale like a widow kiddo. We seen swords longer than a limo. My bros are blacksmiths like Jaden and Willow. So right here, he's basically saying that due to all the violence that's taking place in Streatham, that he should make you spend a day there so you can actually see what it's like for people living in that area where, you know, funerals and whatnot are very often. And then he says, my bros are blacksmiths like Jaden and Willow. And, you know, blacksmiths are the ones that craft weapons, and his bros carry knives and whatnot. and 2 blacksmiths, Jaden and Willow Smith. They're black and their last name is Smith. So that was pretty much another double entendre. Then we have track 2, Streatham. It's the second single. Dave paints a picture of growing up in Streatham, which is located in South London. He says, how you gas off of a note that's purple? Bet you never got it off white like Virgil. He's saying, how are you gas off of, seeing a purple note, which is their currency, but you never got it off white like Virgil, but you never got it through the mud by selling drugs, which is a reference to cocaine. And then you have off-white like Virgil. Off-white is Virgil's clothing line. So pretty clever there. He says, men are dead or in jail. That's useless. Tell a you. If you got a brain, then use it. Now I drive past men I went to school with. You was a cool kid. Now you look clueless. So not right now, he's basically reflecting upon 2 paths. The path of choosing the streets and the path of choosing education. So men are dead or in jail. The people that chose the streets are dead or in jail. That's useless. Basically saying to the young kid that choosing the path of the streets is useless and a waste of time and life. He said, if you got a brain, then use it. If you're smart, go to school, get an education, and make something of yourself. Then he says, but I grew up in Streatham and teachers was giving man tests. Same time Mandem were giving out testers. I've got ping tings giving me stress, news in the message. Put in an effort, but I don't need a me and you, like when a chef would eat at his restaurant. So right here, the first part, he's speaking to, the stress that people receive basically when it's time to take tests. And then he says, at the same time that people are stressed out, you have people on a corner giving out testers, which is free drugs to get them hooked, basically to numb their stress and to, acquire new customers. And then he says, I've got ping things giving me stress, nudes in the message, put in an effort, but I don't need a menu like when the chef will eat at his restaurant. So basically he's saying now that he's famous or whatnot, you have different girls sending him nudes, which is to gain his attention, but he has a selection of women, like a menu, which is cool, a cool play on words with the me and you, which is menu, like when a chef will eat at his restaurant. So as you can see already from these 2 tracks, his wordplay is, very good. And you're going to see various examples of this throughout this project. We have track 3, Black, is the lead single. Dave touches upon racial and social inequality. He says, look, black is beautiful, black is excellent, black is pain, black is joy, black is evident. It's working twice as hard as the people you know you're better than, because you need to do double what they do so you can level them. And this is basically speaking to the restrictions put on people of color. We have to work twice as hard in order to, level out with people, of a different color of us. And then he says, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. A kid dies, the blacker the killer, the sweeter the news. And if he's white, you give him a chance, he's ill and confused. If he's black, he's probably armed, you see him and shoot. And this is a juxtaposition to how, people of color are treated as opposed to their white counterparts, especially in the news. Blacks are usually portrayed as vicious animals, while the, Caucasians are usually treated as someone who's troubled and, needs forgiveness. So basically he's showing the double standard that the media portrays. And then we have him saying, black is growing up around your family and making it, then being forced to leave the place you love because there's hate in it. People say you fake the shit, never say to change the shit, but black is being jealous. You'd be dead if you had stayed in it. Black is struggling to find your history or trace the shit you don't know, the truth about your race, because they're erasing it. And this is a pretty deep line right here. When you're around people, in the hood, with your friends or whatnot, and you all have dreams of making it, and then once you eventually do, you know, the people that you thought was your friends end up becoming jealous and turning on you because, you know, you made it out and they're still there, which basically brings it back to the whole crab in the barrel mentality, which is a troubling thing, you know, within urban communities. And then he says, people say you fake the shit, never stayed to change the shit. That's basically saying, oh, now that you made it, you've gone to Hollywood and you forgot where you came from. No, it's you've had another place in your life, and, you know, going back to that place, you can't do that because you have people who are jealous and envious of you. So therefore, you now have a target on your back. And if you stay there, you end up dead. And this is also something that you hear Boosie say, where he says people have they're hypnotized by hatred. They see somebody from their city, you know, elevate their lives, and then sometimes those people end up staying in the city and they ended up dying in there. So, and you have various examples of people who got big and stayed in their city and ended up getting killed there, you know, with Triple X. You had who else? It's been a variety of different people. Off the top of my head, I can't recall the other names, but there's this guy from New York, and then you had the guy in Louisiana, but I can't think of their names. But yeah. And then he says, Black is struggling to find your history or trace the shit you don't know, because, you know, way back when, there wasn't records kept of Black families. Oftentimes they was split up and you were given the last name of the slave master. So tracing your history is harder for, you know, people of color as opposed to, you know, others. And then he says, the truth about your race because they're erasing it, which is true. It's hard to know the truth about your race when the people that's in power are making an attempt to keep it hidden from you. And you basically have to do a lot of deep digging in order to figure out, you know, those type of things. And then he goes on to say, look, Black ain't just a single fucking color, man. There's shades to it. Her hair's straight and thick, but mine's got waves in it. Black is not divisive. They've been lying, and I hate this shit. Black has never been a competition. We don't make this shit. And it's true. You can't put all of us into one, you know, pot. There's a variety of different, you know, types of, you know, people of color. And, you know, you can't all compare us as being the same. You know, each has their own different qualities and, you know, things of that nature. And then he says, Black is not divisive. It isn't. That's something that's been, you know, portrayed by the media, but it's clearly a falsehood. And then he says, Black has never been a competition. And this speaks to the whole light skin versus dark skin thing, when in actuality, we're all the same. It shouldn't matter what tone your skin color is, because you're still, you know, of the same person. And then he says, Black is people naming your countries on what they trade most. Coast of Ivory, Gold Coast, and the Green Coast. That's speaking to colonization. Black is so confusing because the culture, they're in love with it. They take our features when they want and have their fun with it. Never seem to help with all the things we know would come with it. Loud in our laughter, silent in our suffering. Black is being strong inside and facing defeat. Poverty made me a beast. I battled the law in the streets. We all struggle, but you struggle and you struggle like me. Well, how could it be when your people gave us the odds that we beat? And this speaks to, you know, a larger topic. You know, Black culture is culture in essence. It basically, you know, runs the world, whether it's hip hop, you know, our music, our style of fashion, the way we talk, the way we dance, all of that. And you have people from other backgrounds wanting to, you know, be a part of that. But when it comes down to get, in the trenches with us when it comes to us facing battles against inequality and discrimination, those same people are nowhere to be found. And the latter part of this, he speaks to him, being engaged with the law. And then he's also speaking to, you can never understand what it's like to be black unless you're in it with them. And how could you when it's your people that put us in this situation? And he's basically referring to, the Caucasian people. So I thought this was probably one of the most deepest songs on the album, and I thought it was dope that he made this a single as well, because it's very strong, especially as a lead single, and the visuals are dope for it too if you haven't seen those. But anyways, moving on, we have Location featuring Burna Boy. It's a smooth track, back with a piano play where Dave discusses successful strides in his career, his luck with women, and his rise in fame. He says, "My house party a babe station, girls want to chase, it's a status thing." Babe station is basically referring to one of the adult channels over in the UK. And he's basically saying when he throws parties, it's equivalent to the type of women you would see on those type of stations. And he says girls want to chase is the saddest thing. Girls see that you have clout and they want to be a part of it. And he says, "Look, playboy, I don't need a cardi. I'm captain. I lead the army. Bad ratio, I lead the party." And this is pretty much a double entendre. He says, "Look, playboy," which look person or look dude. I don't need a cardi. Playboy Cardi is American artist. I don't need a cardi. I don't need an American artist to blow me up. I'm captain. He's the head of, his fame and his career, and he's going to be the one to lead it. And then he says, "I lead the army. Bad ratio, I lead the party." So basically, if there's more men than women at a party, he has no qualms with leaving. And we have track 7, Screwface Capital. Dave discusses growing up in London and how the environment can cause people to act out of character, often to the point of their own detriment. He says, "Just know I put both of the P's in op at the same time. I put the pay in pagan." So right here, he's basically saying he's making so much money that he'll put, both of the P's, which is money, in the op, which is the opposition. So basically he's saying he could put a bag on the opposition head if it comes to that. And I put the pay in pagan. And pagan is somebody that's seen as uncivilized and evil or whatnot. Then he says, "It's been 15 minutes since me and her fucked, and I'm saying, what you still in the house for? Girls see I'm rude, but they won't never leave because the jab right like southpaws." So he's basically saying it's been 15 minutes since, they didn't have sex and she's still laying around because she's probably a groupie or whatnot. And so he has to get a little, verbal with her to get her to leave. But she doesn't want to leave because, the jab right like southpaws, because he didn't put it down so good on her that she don't want to leave, basically. And then he says, "One eye on my ops, 2 eyes on my friends, because at least my ops, man, know their intentions." So basically he's saying, he's keeping his enemies close and his friends closer, which is kind of a reverse of keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. Because at least with your enemies, their intentions, but with friends, you don't. And in certain situations, it'd be the ones closest to you that end up doing you in. So it's kind of an interesting, take on things. Then we have track 8, Environment. The song starts with a therapist asking Dave, "What do you think people see when they look at you?" To which Dave starts with "look" and goes on to explain his true feelings. "Where I'm from, everybody wants to make it out, but nobody wants to see somebody make it out. It ain't about who came around, but more about who stayed around." So this speaks to, when you acquire fame and those that you came up with are in a different point in their lives and they see that you've, elevated above them, which creates resentment and they end up hating on you or whatnot. They happy when you're on the same level as them, but when you surpass them, they grow envious and jealous. Then he says, you see the deals and think all these rappers laughing now, but you don't get that if we weren't already, we're a target now. You see all the groupie girls and think they're heaven sent. I see 25 minutes worth of empty sex. So basically he's speaking to the surface of what it's like to be in the position of, you know, status where it looks all glitz and glamour, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of things that you don't see, which is, you know, threats on your life because you have money, you have wealth, you instantly become a target, which is why, you know, when you do achieve that level, you have to have security at all times, or you end up becoming a victim of circumstance, which you see throughout the media with rappers and celebrities getting robbed. And then he's talking to, you know, the road life. It looks glamorous, you smashing a different girl every night, but there's no type of attachment to it. It's just, you know, you just doing it just to do it. There's no type of love or connection being shared, so it's empty. Then he says, the scene turned on me, people trying to ruin me. Where most would see a problem, I'm seeing an opportunity to drop a freestyle and kill them niggas that were booing me. I made my haters watch and put the screw inside of scrutiny. So basically right here, he's speaking to a situation where a model was killed because he engaged, he got into an argument with another model who basically claimed that he smashed a dude's girl, and so they agreed to meet up and hash things out in a fight or whatever, and things didn't go as planned, and the dude ended up getting stabbed to death. And basically Dave made a tweet where he says that the stop and frisk should be, you know, reinstated, and a lot of people lashed out against him because, you know, the stop and frisk is usually used as a way to discriminate against people of color, and it's oftentimes those stop and frisks that lead to, you know, people of color getting killed or, you know, being injured. So a lot of people had animosity towards him for that. And then where he's talking about it gave him an opportunity for a freestyle, he's referring to a song called Hangman, where he was basically given an opportunity to speak his mind and explain, you know, more on the situation, as opposed to keeping it in the limitations of a tweet on Twitter. Then he says, niggas saw keys and went to trial for shotting. I saw keys, learned to play and made thousands from it. Right here, he's speaking to, you know, those two paths you take. The path of the streets, which is dudes saw keys, which is bricks or cocaine. They got into that lifestyle and it ended up with them being in jail. And he saw the path of getting into music. He saw keys, piano keys, learned to play and made thousands from it, made money from, you know, music. You see the club popping when we do the show, but you don't see the studio. My life is not a movie, bro. Champagne bottles and all the screaming girls. It's ironic how you'll never hear a scream for help. He's basically saying that on the surface, you know, the music or the rap game looks appealing and it looks easy, but you don't see the time and dedication that's put into it, you know, in the studio. And then he says, even through all of that, you know, you see all the glitz and glamour, but you don't see, you know, people, you don't see people basically crying out for help, you know, when they're in a place of, you know, depression. He says, fucking hell, why do you think we're going through the same thing? Depression, when you make it, the pressure and the hatred. Your people talk about you. You can't say shit. The moment that you ain't it, the labels are looking for replacements. So right here, he's speaking to how a lot of artists you see now are dealing with depression because of the pressure, you know, of the music industry. You're being pulled from multiple different directions, whether it's family, whether it's the industry, and whether it's friends, you grew up with, you being dragged. And then at times it can be too much and can cause you to fall in a state of depression, which I think is pretty powerful for an artist to speak about that. And then he says that once you're not hot anymore, a label will just discard you as if you're nothing, which is true. For a lot of artists, you see artists who blow up quick and then out of nowhere, it's like, what happened to them? You have artists like, Fetty Wap. He had a whole bunch of singles, and then, eventually his buzz kind of fizzled down. There's a lot of things that goes on behind the scenes that, account, or should I say contribute to that. Then he says, same shit. People start forgetting what you've done for them. Everyone in music is going to take until there's nothing left. Your fans are switching up on you and you don't know how tough it gets reading through your old comments trying to feel some love again. So right now he's basically breaking down the music game for you. Everybody's going to be around until there's nothing left, and then they move on to the next person. So basically they're leeches and snakes. Fans are fickle. One minute they're with you, the next minute they'll move on to the next latest and greatest thing. You see that with the Nicki and Cardi thing. Nicki dominated the music industry as far as the female rap side, and as soon as Cardi B came out, you got people basically dogging and dissing her because Cardi is the latest and greatest thing, which isn't cool. And then artists are humans too. They're not robots, so they have feelings, and so they look back at comments where fans were giving them some type of love to help them cope with their feelings. So I thought that's 8, I would say track 8 and track 3, those two were very, very deep. Black and Environment, those two were some very deep tracks. But anyways, moving on, we have track 9, Lesley featuring Ruelle. The song tells the story of a girl Dave meets who was a victim of abuse. The song is also a call to action to seek help if you are a victim of abuse. I thought this was a pretty powerful song too. He basically highlights, him meeting a girl, and the entire song tells the story of an abusive relationship. He says, she used to be the life of the party for Thru, and now she going out hardly ever. Her man got her in the yard forever, and her friends want to help, but it's hard to tell her heart to let her know that her man's possessive and aggressive, and she can't even see it. But for them, it's clear as day. She's in a situation. Her friend Hannah had a man that was manipulative, so she could see it from a mile off. Turtleneck jumpers, makeup around the eye spots, all the signs were there, but Lesley made it seem a light affair, said it wasn't right to share. So right here, he's basically, the initial part is he's basically showing how a girl by the name of Lesley used to be the life of the party. She used to go out and mingle with her friends, but once she got into a relationship with this abusive dude, her lifestyle changed. She was in the house more because the guy wouldn't let her go out, which is often, the case when you have manipulative and possessive man in your life. Her friends can see the signs that she's being abused, but it's hard for Lesley to see what's going on because she's pretty much being oblivious to it, and giving the guy a chance after chance, thinking that he would change, but that's not going to happen. And then her friend, who's been in a similar situation, sees the signs for the jump and tries to intervene. But, with Lesley, she's basically making excuses. When Hannah sees Lesley, she's in turtleneck jumpers, which means that she's being physically abused, and she's using the turtlenecks to hide the bruises on her neck. And then makeup around eye spots, she's being punched on in the eye. These are all signs of abuse. But Lesley is making it seem like it was a minor thing, and it's not. And this right here speaks to a situations that's common. You have women oftentimes that are, their self-esteem isn't as high, so they find themselves with these dudes that end up being abusive, and rather than leave, they stay due to a lack of, or due to a sense of not wanting to be alone, I guess. But I thought it was pretty powerful for him to make a song like this. And then I think towards the end of the song, he basically says that the story is actually, you know, him discussing a family member. So thus he's breaking the fourth wall, which I thought was pretty dope. This was pretty powerful. And the album itself was released on I think it was the Women's Rights Day or Women Empowerment Day or something like that. So I think that was doubly, you know, powerful. And then the last track we have Drama. The song sees Dave having a heart-to-heart with his brother Chris, who's in prison. He says, "Losing dad was big. Losing you was even bigger. Never had a father, and I needed you to be the figure. We're forgetting that we had a brother that was even bigger. We were figures just trying to figure out who could be a figure. My brothers never spoke to each other when I was growing up. I remember trying to build a bridge. I wasn't old enough." So right here, he's basically speaking to losing his dad early. His dad basically left him when they were kids. And then losing his brother Chris was even bigger because he looked to Chris to be like a father figure. And then he talks about their even older brother who was, you know, even bigger than them. So basically, Chris was Dave's father figure, and then their other brother, I forgot the other brother's name, was basically supposed to act as like a father figure for them. So when each you know, brother left, it was like the younger one was left with a sense of like, well, what do I do now? Because I have nobody to point me in the right direction. And by them being, you know, at various points in their life, you know, they can't really connect because the oldest brother is 8 years older than Dave, and then the second oldest brother is 5 years older than Dave, and Dave is the youngest. So their places in life is very different. One's would be in college, the other would probably be in high school, and then Dave will be in elementary. So they're at various points in their life. And then he says, "I remember when you got sentenced and I was throwing up. It's like they took a piece of my freedom when I had opened up. I just lost the only fucking person that I idolized for my entire life. I copied you down to the finest line." So right here, he's speaking to idolizing his brother. And basically, once he lost him, he basically lost himself in a sense. He says, "Rappers want to diss me. It's only online though. They put the mic and soft in the Microsoft, not I, bro." So I thought this was a pretty a clever play on words. He's saying rappers want to diss him, but it's only online. And so in person, you know, they're soft, and on the mic they're soft as well. And then Microsoft is a big tech company, and then the not I is in reference to Apple, who places the I in front of all of their things. So basically, he's seeing himself as being Apple, and the people dissing him is Microsoft. So basically, they're below him. He says, and then on the outro, his brother says, "Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, 'The Lord has not chosen these.' So he asked Jesse, 'Are these all the sons you have?' 'There is still the youngest,' Jesse answered, 'but he's tending the sheep.' Samuel said, 'Send for him. We will not sit down to eat until he arrives.' So he sent and had him brought in. He was ready with a fine appearance and handsome features. And then the Lord said, 'Rise and anoint him. He's the one.'" Bro, you know what that means? Say no more, man. So basically, his brother took a story from, you know, the Bible, and basically juxtaposed it to their life, where Dave is the youngest, and therefore he's going to be the one to, you know, triumph and persevere through. which I thought that was a pretty cool thing. And as far as the album go, I thought it was pretty dope how he started the album with the title Psycho and then ended it with Drama, which is the name of the album. So everything in between is basically everything that culminates a psychodrama, which is a form of therapy. So I thought that was dope. He was very thoughtful in the way that he put this album together. But anyways, moving on, sleepers, we have track 4, Purple Heart, and we have track 6, Disaster, featuring J Hus. Skips, we have track 10, Voices. My personal favorites are Psycho, Streatham, Black, Location, and Screwface Capital. And my overall conclusion, I thought this was an amazing body of work. It touches upon a variety of different topics, you know, society issues in reference to the way, you know, people of color are treated. He's speaking to, you know, physical abuse. He's speaking to, you know, growing up as a black person and the things that take place growing up, you know, losing a father early and you having to grow up because there's no father figure, you know, losing friends, losing relatives to the prison system, a whole bunch of different things. And therapy, the entire project is basically Dave's therapy. And in the beginning, it starts off with a therapist. And so basically it starts in therapy and he's basically discussing everything he's talking about in therapy through the album. And then it ends with, you know, him speaking to his brother. And yeah, so basically the first track is Psycho and the last track is Drama. So I thought this was pretty cleverly put together, and I gave the album a 10 out of 11, which comes out to a 91%. So overall, I thought this was an amazing body of work, and I would definitely recommend to you guys to give it a listen for yourselves. But anyways, if you're a fan of Dave, and even if you're not, be sure to stream his album, buy it. If you enjoyed my review, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.